Your body is talking to you every day. Most people over 60 are not listening, not because they are careless, but because nobody told them what to listen for. The signals are quiet, gradual, easy to explain away as normal aging, a bad night of sleep, just getting older. But research published in the last 2 years has identified 7 specific signals, things your body does or stops doing, that science now knows are not random, not inevitable, not simply age. Each one is your biology asking for something, signaling that something measurable is changing beneath the surface. Some of these signals most people have never connected to anything serious. One of them involves your sense of smell. One involves how long it takes you to stand up. One involves a habit that feels completely normal at 65 that almost never happened at 45. By the end of this video, you will know all 7. You will understand what each one means, and you will know what to do about each one, including which ones deserve a conversation with your doctor. Stay until signal number 6, because that one surprises almost everyone who hears it, and it connects to something in the brain that science only recently fully understood. Let us begin. Signal number 1. Your walking pace has gotten slower without you noticing. This one is easy to miss because it happens gradually. You do not feel slower, you just are slower. Your stride gets a little shorter. Stairs take a little longer. You find yourself taking your time in places where you once moved without thinking. Most people chalk this up to being careful, to being sensible, to not rushing the way they did when they were younger. But researchers have been studying walking speed as a health signal for decades, and what they have found is striking. A comprehensive analysis published in JAMA examined walking speed data from nearly 35,000 older adults across multiple long-term studies. Their conclusion: walking speed is one of the most reliable predictors of survival in older adults. Faster walkers consistently had better 10-year survival rates across every age group studied. A 2025 study published in Physical and Occupational Therapy in Geriatrics found that among hospitalized elderly adults with slow gait speed, mortality over 2 years was 35.6%, compared to 11.1% in those without slow gait speed. Your walking pace is not just about mobility. It reflects the integrated health of your muscles, your cardiovascular system, your nervous system, and your brain. If you have noticed you are slower than you were 5 years ago, that is not a reason for alarm. It is a reason to act. And specifically, it is a reason to tell your doctor. A simple gait speed assessment takes 30 seconds and can tell a physician more about your biological age than most blood tests. Signal number 2, your grip feels weaker than it used to. Think about how a jar felt 10 years ago versus how it feels now. Think about opening a bottle, turning a door handle, carrying a bag. Grip strength is the other measurement, alongside walking speed, that researchers use as a proxy for overall physical health in older adults. It reflects skeletal muscle health, neurological function, and the body's ability to generate force on demand. A March 2026 article in The Healthy, citing research by geriatric physician Ronald Schwartz, described grip strength as one of the 4 most overlooked indicators of declining health in older adults. A Johns Hopkins research group found that low grip strength and slow gait speed together strongly predict hospitalization, disability, and loss of independence. A 2025 study from Vanderbilt University Medical Center found that grip strength and gait speed are both associated with structural brain volume in older adults, meaning that as these physical measures decline, there are measurable changes in the brain regions involved in memory and cognition. This is not just about hands. This is about the whole system. If opening a jar has become a two-handed effort, that is worth noting. Not with fear, with attention. Signal number 3. Small things that used to smell strong no longer do. This one surprises people the most. When did you last really smell fresh coffee brewing? Rain on pavement? A flower that should be fragrant? If your honest answer is that smells seem less vivid than they used to be, that is worth paying attention to. For a reason that has nothing to do with your nose. Research published by the National Institute on Aging in a study led by NIA scientists found that a good sense of smell is associated with slower loss of brain volume and cognitive decline in older adults. More significantly, a long-term study of nearly 3,000 adults aged 57 to 85, published in research covered by Science Daily, found that those who could not correctly identify at least 4 out of 5 common odors were more than twice as likely to develop dementia within 5 years. The reason involves the olfactory bulbs, the part of your brain that processes smell. In both Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease, the abnormal proteins associated with these conditions, amyloid beta and alpha-synuclein, accumulate in the olfactory bulb before they appear anywhere else in the brain. In Parkinson's disease specifically, studies have shown that 75 to 95% of patients experience impaired smell, and this impairment often appears 10 to 15 years before the motor symptoms that are typically used to diagnose the disease. A declining sense of smell does not mean you have or will develop a neurodegenerative disease. Many things can reduce smell, including medications, allergies, and normal aging. But if you have noticed a significant change, that is worth mentioning to your doctor. It is the kind of early signal that, caught in time, opens options that are not available later. Signal number 4. You are getting up in the middle of the night more than you used to. We covered this in detail in a previous video in this series, but it belongs in this list because it is something most people never bring up with their doctor. They assume it is normal. Their doctor assumes it is just aging, and so nothing is ever said. But a December 2025 study published in the journal Neurology, the official journal of the American Academy of Neurology, found that people with weaker and more irregular circadian rhythms were significantly more likely to develop dementia. The researchers followed thousands of older adults and found a clear association between disrupted sleep-wake patterns and neurological decline. Waking at the same time each night repeatedly is not random. It is your body clock firing at its shifted wake time, no longer able to generate a strong enough sleep signal to keep you in deep rest. If this is happening consistently, it is worth discussing with your doctor, not as an inconvenience but as a signal. Signal number 5. Your balance feels less automatic than it used to. You step onto uneven ground and you hesitate. You reach for a wall when you turn quickly. You feel briefly uncertain on stairs in a way you did not 10 years ago. Most people dismiss this as being careful, but research is clear. Balance changes in your 60s and 70s are an early indicator of sarcopenia, the gradual loss of muscle mass, and of neurological changes in the proprioceptive system, the internal positioning system that tells your body where it is in space without you needing to look. A 2025 study tracking over 4,000 older adults across 10 years found that slow gait speed and declining grip strength, both connected to balance, are predictive of disability, hospitalization, and mortality over time. The good news here is direct and actionable. Balance responds very well to targeted exercise. Simple single-leg standing, practiced for just 60 seconds a day on each side, has been shown to measurably improve proprioceptive function within weeks. If your balance has become something you think about rather than something that happens automatically, that is your proprioceptive system signaling that it needs attention. Not replacement, attention. Signal number 6. You feel tired in a way that sleep does not fix. Not tired because you did too much. Not tired because you slept badly one night. The other kind. The low-level background tiredness that is just there when you wake up. That coffee helps briefly but does not resolve. That has been there, quietly, for months or years. This signal connects to research on cellular senescence, the zombie cell accumulation we discussed in the first video in this series. A 2025 review published in Biomolecules found that mitochondrial dysfunction, driven in large part by zombie cell accumulation and the chronic inflammatory signals they release, is a primary contributor to the fatigue that older adults experience even after adequate rest. Your mitochondria are the energy-producing structures inside your cells. As zombie cells accumulate, the inflammatory chemicals they release damage nearby mitochondria, reducing their ability to produce energy efficiently. The result is fatigue that is cellular in origin, not something that more sleep can fix, because the problem is not a sleep debt. It is an energy production problem at the cellular level. This kind of fatigue also responds to the same interventions that reduce zombie cell burden: consistent gentle movement, anti-inflammatory nutrition, and protecting the quality of deep sleep. If this describes what you feel, that is not you being lazy. That is not just aging. That is a biological signal from a system that is working with less support than it needs, and that is something that can be addressed. Signal number 7. You have started avoiding things without quite deciding to. This last one is different from the others. It is not a physical sensation, it is a behavioral shift. You have stopped walking certain routes because the uneven ground feels uncertain. You have started choosing the elevator instead of the stairs, not because you are out of breath, but because it just feels easier. You have quietly stopped offering to carry heavy things. You have started sitting down when you used to stand. None of these decisions feel like decisions. They feel like preferences, practical choices. But researchers who study aging independence have identified this pattern as one of the most important and most invisible signals of early functional decline. When the body loses confidence in its physical reliability, the nervous system begins to self-protect by avoiding demand. And the less demand the body receives, the faster the underlying decline continues. A March 2026 piece in The Healthy, citing board-certified geriatric physician Ronald Schwartz, described this pattern directly. Health decline in older adults rarely presents as a crisis at first. It is the tiny ways daily life starts to feel heavier, slower, or just off. If you can identify things you have stopped doing without quite deciding to stop them, that is worth writing down and worth discussing with your doctor. Now let us bring all 7 together: slower walking pace, weaker grip, a diminished sense of smell, disrupted sleep, balance that requires thought, fatigue that sleep does not resolve, quiet avoidance of physical demands. None of these signals is a diagnosis. None of them means something is definitely wrong. But each one is your body speaking a language that science has now learned to read, and the translation is always the same. Something measurable is changing. This is early enough to act. Early is the most important word in that sentence. These signals do not appear when a problem is advanced. They appear in the window before it becomes advanced. That is why they matter. That is why they are worth paying attention to. Your body has not stopped communicating. Most people have just never been taught to listen. Tell us in the comments, which of these 7 signals did you recognize? The walking pace? The smell? The fatigue? We read every comment here. And if this video named something you have been noticing but never had a word for, we want to know. Subscribe if you want to continue going deeper. Each video in this series takes one of these signals and breaks down exactly what is happening at the biological level, and what the current research says about what actually helps. One more thing before you go. Signal number 3. The sense of smell connects to something we have not fully explained yet. We said the abnormal proteins associated with Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease appear in the olfactory bulb first, sometimes 10 to 15 years before any other symptoms. But there is a reason for that, a specific pathway, one that involves a structure in the brain that also controls something else entirely, something most people would never associate with smell. And understanding that pathway completely changes how you should think about protecting your brain after 60. That is the next video in this series. See you there.